You are live. We are live. We are live together. Welcome to another installment of Tuned Into Tennis. This episode, I was about to say this episode is brought to you by so-and-so, but we're not there yet. This episode is brought to you, not there yet. This episode is brought to you by sheer passion and enjoyment for Serena Williams' career, because I am happy to be joined by I think it's my favorite casual tennis fan and favorite Serena Williams / Taylor Townsend fan, Mr. Miquel, aka New Balls Please. How you doing, bro? How you doing?
I'm good. And this is also brought to you by Shiba Shere.
You mean Shiba Shein? Shiba Shein?
Shiba Shein is crazy, but yeah, absolutely. I'm good. We are in our post Wimbledon swing. We are in the, what do you call it? The dog days of tennis summer between
it's rough.
Wimbledon and the U.S. swing. I mean, Rhode Island counts, I guess, but yeah.
I have never heard anybody refer to that tournament as just Rhode Island. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, that's what everybody was saying last week. Oh, we got one more grass tournament. It's Rhode Island.
You know, that was the last establishment. I don't know why I feel on that word, but that was the last edition of that tournament, because it's about to be knocked down to an ATP Challenger, not a 250.
What?
Yeah, but it's being knocked down, but it's in a way being expanded, because they're knocking it down to a Challenger, but they're also going to add a WTA Challenger to it too, which they hadn't done in years, like 20 plus.
At least they're doing that, because at least they get to keep their tournament, because the one here
I know, right? The one in Atlanta that's starting this week as we record this, this is their last installment of it too. But if you flip it and look for like the bright light in it all, at least Alicia Parks is gonna have another grass court challenger to kind of test her luck on.
Southside Glock Bridge, Southside to Southside. We gotta give
Glock Bridge. Is that where Alicia Parks is from?
She's allegedly from Stockbridge. From everything I know, she's from Stockbridge. But
Stockbridge, got you.
Yes, they call it Glock Bridge.
But, I know why.
People that's really from Atlanta don't respect it, but I mean, Lotto claims it, so we'll take it.
Well, speaking of claiming parts of your city, I think Serena Williams has and always will claim Compton. And we are here to talk about episodes 1 and 2 of Serena Williams docuseries airing on ESPN Plus called In the Arena, Serena Williams. It is chronicling her journey as just a tennis player turned excellent tennis player, turned icon, turned phenom, turned mom, turned all of that stuff. And episodes 1 and 2 have been released the first 2 weeks of July, and me and my guy Miquel, are about to walk through episodes 1 and 2, give you guys a little bit of our feedback, some highlights from the episode, and just talk our normal tennis stuff as we tend to do here at Tuned Into Tennis. So you ready to get into it?
Absolutely. But I will say this. I really wanted Serena to be in that Not Like Us video, but that's a whole different story.
You know what's crazy? I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if it's like the...
You know that Beyonce video she was in, like dancing all over the place?
Yeah, I ain't sorry. Yeah, 2016. Mm-hmm.
I got forced to watch that last night, but I mean, I've seen it before. But
I was going to say, you had never seen that?
No, before, but I was forced to watch it last night when I mentioned it. I'm like, all right, fam. But anyway, I'm just like, if she was gonna do that for Beyonce, the way Kendrick stood up for Serena was like, that was a great move.
Serena has been crip walking on people for over a decade, so.
All she had to do was just a little cameo.
He could have used her clip from the 2012 Olympics of her crip walking.
That's all I needed. Just because that the vitriol that Drake has shot at her and Alexis has just been so annoying. But anyway, we're not talking about that.
Maybe she'll mention that later on in the episode. They have 8 episodes.
She brought it up.
You said what?
She took a shot at Drake during the ESPYs. I give her credit for that.
Like, she did. Yeah.
Yeah, leave Kendrick alone.
Well, let's get into some things about In the Arena, Serena Williams. Clinton, good supporter of Tuned Into Tennis. How you doing, Clinton? Clinton says, looking forward to the chat, fellas. Appreciate you, Clinton, for being here and rocking with us. All right, let's start off big picture. Let's get tuned in, but let's tune into the bigger picture here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you actually miss Serena Williams on the tennis tour?
Play wise, I'll say a 10 because I don't think I give Iga her credit. I don't think we've seen a player like as dominant as Serena. The closest thing we have right now is Iga. But from a stress level, like I remember my days of waking up at 3:00 in the morning to watch her play in the finals at Australia or the semifinals in Australia, or waking up, getting up super early to watch her at Wimbledon. And later in her career, she would start off slow sometimes and then pick it up, like either later in the first set and she'd lose that first set and take it into the second and third.
Sometimes,
the stress, I don't miss that at all. But that stress has transferred from Serena Williams to Coco Gauff. So it's just like I'm still stressed out. It's just a different person. But from a Serena's perspective, I don't miss the stress of some of those matches because there's some matches where she just kind of like took forever to really turn it on. But
fair,
that stretch where she was just beating the shit out of everybody.
Which one? Which stretch are we talking about? Because there's multiple.
If you want to even go into like episode 1 and episode 2, like when she went on that run from 01 to 02, go 01 going into 02. Who was beating her? Like
it was rare, but let's get back to the big spectrum of things. I guess I should answer my own question.
Yeah.
I miss her. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 15 over here. I miss the entertainment, and I guess I'm the worst person to ask this question because like if you just go on my YouTube, my For You tab, it's gonna always have something Serena Williams related on it because that's just how I'm wired and my algorithm knows that. But I miss the entertainment, I miss the fashion, I miss the passion, I miss all of that stuff. So to even get to this moment, like not to like sit on my high horse or anything like that, but the fact that I picked up on her greatness after she had done her thing as far as the Serena Slam being world number 1. I came along in 2006. Don't judge me if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, you relate to the party. I was born in 93, okay? So it took me a little while to get the hang of things. I'm from a little corner town of Louisiana. People don't really play tennis. It took me a little while to get hip to it, but once I got hip to it, you couldn't get me away from the television to watch Serena. And I'm so glad that I had that moment just kind of scrolling across ESPN and just being enamored with her, because if I didn't, I would have missed out on like the icon and fully appreciating her for who she is. And even with that being said, the players that I watch now that she's retired, you'd mentioned Coco Gauff, going to Sloane Stephens, Naomi Osaka, all women of color. 2 of those women are Black American women. Naomi Osaka isn't necessarily in the category of Black American, but she's said nonstop how much she's been inspired by Serena Williams. All 3 of those women would not be where they are in their career without the impact of Serena and Venus, who we'll get to in this conversation about episode 1 and episode 2. But I'm just happy that like it's kind of come full circle. Like there have been documentaries and movies and stuff about Serena in the past, and they've been good. Even the most recent one, King Richard, where Will Smith played Richard Williams, Serena's father. That was great. And that felt like similar to this moment, like, wow, like my favorite player is like, one, I acknowledged I peeped that she was going to be an icon before she became the status, and 2, like she's getting revered as such. So that's dope to me, and yeah, I'm excited to talk more about it for sure.
For me, it was my introduction to Serena was my barber. Actually,
it's so funny we say that because we're both bald, but okay.
My barber from like my childhood, shouts out Dale, the first Trinidadian man I ever met, one of the greatest people I've ever been around. And
shout out Trinidad.
He was in love with Serena Williams, like in love, and he would always speak in a very what's the word? It was more misogynist because it was always about her body and how she looked and all that stuff like that. It was never about the substance. But
understood. Unfortunately, understood.
It was typical barbershop talk. But I'm a 10-year-old at what 2010. I mean, not 2010. 2000. That's crazy. It was just, I was like, okay, I'm going to the barbershop and there's literally Wimbledon and Australian Open on TV. And I'm like, I've never gone to a barbershop and there's tennis on the TV. But he would literally watch her matches because he was in love with Serena Williams. And ever since then, it was just like, yo, like she is doing, like she's going crazy. And I don't think there's two iconic tennis players. Actually, I'll give it three. But as far as like the look of what tennis is supposed to be, like from a fashion perspective, from a athletic, or just like from the mentality perspective, it's Serena Williams and one Roger Federer. I don't think there's anybody who just really exemplified the game of tennis the way they have. Venus and Rafa, they both
in their own right,
did it. But I don't think outside of those two, I don't think anybody's ever done it the way they've done it.
It's those four players are names you can mention just their first name, and people know that you're talking about a tennis player and a really damn good one that's going to the Hall of Fame in a couple of years, So yeah, I get what you mean.
Carlos is on his way to that too, but we'll see.
Not you dropping Carlos Alcaraz in the chat.
Hey,
I mean, he did just win Wimbledon, so it's okay. It's fair. It's fair.
The most beautiful way to watch tennis is watching people play tennis on grass. That's the way I see it. If it's not played on grass, I don't think it's beautiful. But just the way tennis, in my opinion, is supposed to be played, and as far as aesthetically pleasing, is watching it being played on grass. So to watch Serena, to watch Venus, to watch Roger, I mean, I give Novak his credit. To watch exactly to give Rafa and Carlos, like it's just beautiful to watch them play. So I think that is like the epitome of like how tennis is supposed to look as a sport aesthetically.
Fair enough, but I think the most interesting thing about the Serena Williams story, as we dive into episode 1, is that the beginning of their story looks totally different from just about every other athlete you can name that's been to world number one, that's won Grand Slams. And in episode 1, Serena basically starts off with that, as we can, this is where we kind of start our outline of episode 1 here. It starts off with a story that a lot of people are familiar with at this point about how Serena was one of 5 sisters who grew up in Compton, and her older sister Venus was really the prodigy, even over Serena, coming up from Compton, which is, as Serena mentioned, a place that tennis players just do not come from. She said it point blank. They don't look like her. They're white women, they're white men, and here comes the Williams family, led by Venus Williams in the late 90s, as the real true prodigy. Serena said early on that even the name of this episode is kind of overarching about being under Venus's shadow. Episode 1 is named Out of the Shadow. Serena said she stayed training with tennis at an early age, in part due to keep up with Venus at the time, because Venus was her best friend. She had other sisters, obviously, but they shared that connection on the tennis court, and that's really what kept her around, was wanting to be like Venus. So if Venus did it, Serena was right there copying her. Did you like a lot of the throwback footage that they showed early on in episode 1?
I think, excuse me, for me with that, I think we've seen it so much. So it's just like, I think the early years we kind of know, but it was just like beautiful to see where they truly came from. So like her, Venus, Isha, and the rest of the gang, but also like we didn't come from privilege like the rest of these kids come from. Because if you look at the stories of like the McEnroes and everybody like that, it's like, oh, we just picked this sport up, and
look, we just waltzed into the country club, really. I mean,
but with the Williams sisters, we had something to play for, like
Mm-hmm.
beyond legacy. Like, no, we had something to actually play for. So I
Mm-hmm.
think their grit, their determination, that, proverbial, or whatever you want to call it, the dog in them and all that stuff like that, their inspiration was much deeper. It was different. And I loved it. That's what drew me to them, because I'm a black man from the east side of Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw how hard my dad worked, how hard my mom worked growing up. So that was something that I could relate to. And that's why I always was drawn to those two, as opposed to, other people on the tour, because
And
it was just,
that's
they look
crazy you
like.
mentioned.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy you mentioned, like, being acknowledging of your father and your mother's hard work, because it's crazy that the story of Venus and Serena existing starts from a conversation between Richard. They didn't really go in depth into this in the in the docuseries, but if you know, Serena and Venus's parents, Richard and Oracene, were just like, let's create two more babies to specifically be tennis champions. Like, all of that was happening before, they got busy on whenever they did and popped out two more sisters. And Serena mentioned it in episode 1 that, like, Richard saw I forgot her name. I think it was Ruzici, of the former WTA player back in the day. She won a tournament and had won more in that tournament, which spanned over a week or so, than Richard had won over a course of a year. And that basically, lit the bulb to to produce two champions that went on to actually be champions. And it's crazy that, like, he had the vision, made it simple, out pop Venus, who was the first prodigy, and then again came along Serena, and many years later, we got two of the best tennis players to ever pick up a racket, based off of, like, one man seeing one thing on television all those years ago. It's kind of crazy.
I think players like them, players like Andre Agassi, if you read Andre Agassi's book, athletes like them where their parents kind of like preordained their trajectory. Some people will call it looks two ways. So it's like, one side, it's parents vicariously living through their children vicariously. But then on the other side, it's like, no, I just want my children to be great at this sport, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it possible. And sometimes those lines get blurred, because if the child is great, then it's just like, oh, well, look at this parent that's living vicariously through their child. But then on the other hand, when they become great, it's just like, so look at the vision that parent had for their child.
Yeah, because
like,
that it really could have gone. There's no telling that his dream would have came to fruition in the way it did. Like, there would have been a good likelihood that, one or two of them or both of them would have been tennis players, but to be the best in the world, especially as we go into episode 2 eventually, simultaneously, number 1 and number 2, is insane. And all of that stems from, like a man and a woman that already had kids was like, you know what, let's pop out two more and put a racket in their hands and see what happens.
But that's the beauty of it, because it's not always guaranteed to happen. Not everybody turns into Venus and Serena Williams. Not everybody turns into, Peyton and Eli Manning. Not everybody turns into that. So it's like, if you take that chance as a parent, you better hope that you bring them the right way, and they also have that, that thing in them that pushes them to, to be great. So, I love I've never been one of those people that, was ever critical of Richard and how he handled the situation, because at the end of the day, as long as you're not beating the hell out of your kids and stuff like that, if you want to push them to be great, push them to be great, as long as it's within the lines of, like, I'm not abusing my children. Because if you read the Andre Agassi book, that kind of plays some lines. So it's a very thin line as far as that goes. But I love the way they showed how he, worked hard to make sure that they were the best that they could be.
I know you said earlier that like we've seen some of this footage before, and even this picture of Serena and Venus in the buggy with the tennis balls at the courts in Compton that we have on the screen right now on the screen. We've seen that before, but some of the stuff that I hadn't seen, a lot of the cool footage of Venus and Serena growing up was just really nice added, I guess, B-roll footage, doing stuff outside of tennis like skateboarding and taekwondo,
Trying to play
and
basketball.
it seemed very intentional. It seemed very intentional that Richard and Oracene did that to make sure that, yes, we know like tennis is a priority, but you can't just be tennis players. And to have literal footage of, this was the late 80s, early 90s, before everybody had something attached to their hand that could record it in an instant. He purposefully recorded all of that stuff, I guess, to hammer home the fact that you guys are going to be great and you're going to be well-rounded and not just great at this one thing, and that's shown in their legacy now. Like both of them have businesses and ventures outside of tennis. So again, to kind of see that at its earliest stages was impressive and inspiring. I mean, I'm not close to having any kids myself, but I might take a lesson or two from Richard, just a small lesson.
But even if, like, let's say as we go into like their pro debuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who was there with the cameras? Like, who was also in the stands with the cameras? Who was also there, recording these big moments in their lives at 16, 17, 18? Because at the end of the day, he knew his hard work at some point was going to pay off. And he wanted to make sure. It seems like he's a dad. Every kind of family function, I'm there with the camera. Family videos, home movies and all that stuff like that. And that's the kind of parent he saw that he came across as. So just documenting their coming up, but also their early success, which was beautiful, because so many times you see tennis parents hand their kids off over to these coaches and just shoo them off. And then it's just like, oh, well, all those important moments early in their career are lost.
Serena mentioned that specifically, that Richard purposefully saw those kind of moments happening for younger players in the junior ranks, and he pulled them out notoriously from playing a lot of junior tournaments because he didn't want all of the distractions or even the extra hype to kind of derail them from being young adults focused on getting an education, one, and being mature and well-rounded to just be citizens of the world like he wanted, and then great tennis players. We have a good comment here from YouTube in the chat. Harold said, haven't watched, but seems the episode focused a lot on the Williams sisters' backstory. How much of a focus was Richard and especially Oracene? I feel like she gets so little credit. Serena mentioned that. Yeah, it is. But Serena said that point blank in episode 1, that like people don't realize this, but Oracene was my coach too, her mom, and she was right there at all the practices. And I think in the film King Richard, they alluded to the fact that Oracene spent a lot more time with Serena perfecting certain things that Richard was kind of like doing with Venus as almost a guinea pig, because Venus was first and Oracene was like, we taught Venus this thing or this serve or this stroke this way. How about if we tweak it just a little bit more and I focus on it with Serena? And that's ultimately how Serena ended up being, all due respect to Venus. But I think Venus is the first person to tell you that Serena ultimately became the better player. So I think Oracene had a hand in that.
I think, at least from all the times I've seen Oracene in the box, Oracene just doesn't really seem like the type of person that wants the credit. She doesn't really seem like the person that wants the limelight. She just wants to be Oracene. Hey, those are my daughters. I'm over here. Richard, you talk. I'm cool. I'm over here. I'll be over here in the box taking me a little nap midway through the second set. Like, that's just how she always has been to me through my eyes. And, when she has her moments, she has her moments. But I just think Oracene has always been a person that's just like, I'll play the back seat. I know what I did, and I'm comfortable with that. And as long as my daughters are good, as long as my husband gets his credit or whatever, I'm cool. I don't need the credit. Y'all have fun. Y'all good. That's just how Oracene has always come off to me.
She was a cool mom. That's what it gave. She was the cool mom that somebody said, and Will said in the chat, Oracene just wanted a nap because Oracene literally took naps in some of those matches. I mean, she was on the, they kept, Serena said this a couple times in the series, like being on site. And that stuck out with me a little bit. Fast forwarding a little bit here, like how much time you really spend on site at a tournament before you even get to match day or like match time when the umpire says, ready, set, play. You spend a lot of time at that site. And, that's just to be in, the late 90s, Serena and Venus's formative years and have probably stories that we will probably never know because it's family oriented and kept close to the chest. I think a lot of that is because Oracene kept the unit all together in those real early years. And it's, even though she doesn't get the credit for it, like, by the masses, those that know that Oracene was definitely a glue that kept everything together and kept, Serena and Venus on the right track for sure.
And that's why it's on us, people like us, people who love them and love the sport. It's on us to make sure we mention her name in these conversations, because sometimes people don't want to speak. Like sometimes, and I'm kind of one of those people. I don't like to speak up for myself. If I do something good, I'd rather it come from somebody else because I don't like to toot my own horn. And I think Oracene is kind of that way. Like, let somebody else speak up for me. I know what I did, and I'm good with that. And that's why, like I said, it's on us. Thankfully, Serena and Venus were able to mention it, and Richard, able to mention her too, because it just doesn't really seem like she really cares to be in the limelight. She's cool. I see my daughters. I see what they're doing. I see the success that they've brought up through all these years, and leave it at that.
Yeah. This is a good time to mention, if you're listening to this or watching to this back on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to Tuned Into Tennis. I have a goal in my head of at least getting to 500 subscribers by the time we get to the US Open in a couple of weeks. So if you're not subscribed already, make sure you press that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you get notified when we go live or I upload new content all about the world of professional tennis. So there's that shameless plug. Before we dive into the career of Serena Williams, because the episode 1 honestly talks for the first third of the episode is about how much Venus was the prodigy. It shows Venus's, pro debut back in Oklahoma in 1994, but then it switches to Serena telling us a lot about her pro debut in 1995, I believe, which was a pro debut. Was it? I know it was in Canada. Was it Ontario, Toronto, somewhere in Canada? You think it was Toronto? I should have wrote this down, but I know the one of the things that I took from the episode was she missed her flight going to that tournament with her.
Oh yeah.
She said she was at the airport. Mind you, this is pre 9/11. Things were just different in the airport. And she said she wanted a hot dog, and Richard got her a hot dog. And before they knew it, they turned around and the plane had taken off. So they already started off with a bad trip to get her pro debut under the way. But she goes to play and she stunk it up out there. Let's just say that. She definitely stunk it up, and she wasn't afraid to say it. Like, hey, like it definitely wasn't something I did while I felt like I was ready. It just kind of, it kind of happened. I stunk it up, and it is what it is. But it was nice to kind of get just that little insight for a second into, how the greatest player of all time stunk it up the first time she went on the court, and some player that ultimately doesn't have the track record nearly as strong as she does beat her in her first professional match as a teenager.
Yeah, the pressure is crazy. Like, I remember my first time thinking, like, and this was in high school. I remember the first time I got humbled by somebody. This was my senior year, and we were playing like an exhibition against somebody. And this little freshman came out. Oh, I just want to play over here on the far end court. I was like, let me go ahead and smoke this boy real quick. That kid's like beat the brakes off of me. Like, no, it wasn't even close. And I think sometimes I think sometimes that loss is what kind of catapults you to your success. That first loss, it seems like it. Well, that loss and then what she discusses in episode 2, just taking those little things and turning them into motivation, no matter how big or small. Like some people really make some people make fun of athletes for the things that they use as motivation. And I'm like, hey, if I take that personal and it leads me to success, hey, it works. So, her using that first loss to springboard her career into what it came into, and then other things, of course, in the future. But yeah, I had no problem with it.
I thought it was funny that she admitted to the fact that she wasn't ready, because I don't think that's something that she would have ever said to anybody really, but she knew in the back of her head she wasn't ready. But like you said, that serves as a catalyst for what she eventually comes to do in 1998, which is kind of the start of Serena Williams being noticeable on the WTA tour. And I say noticeable because fast forward to 1998, she goes into what is now called the Miami Open. It used to be called the Lipton Championships, and she has the world number 1 player on the ropes, Martina Hingis at the time, and she has her to the point where I don't know if she had match points, but she definitely was serving for that match a couple different times. She ended up losing, and in episode 1, she says like, now I don't know if I 100% agree with this, especially because the pictures that they were showing while she was talking about this, my girl looked absolutely crushed out there. I mean, she should have been, because she probably should have won that match. But she said, walking off the court, it was like, you know what? I should have won that match, but now I got you. I know what to do the next time we play to beat the world's number 1 tennis player. And at that time, she had no business even, on paper, competing with Martina Hingis, who was at that point had won 3 slams in 1997, won another Australian Open in 1998. She was the player to beat, and Serena Williams showed that she could live with her and almost beat her. And Serena Williams walked away from that being like, you know what? I got you. Next time I see you, I got you. And the next time she saw her, what?
You know what you call it? You call that on-the-job training.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're not gonna have all the answers when you get out there, and sometimes you got to take an L. Sometimes you got to lose just to understand. Like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing, and I'm gonna move forward accordingly. That's just what it is. So, and I think in sports that is like paramount a lot of times, because at the end of the day, on the other side, you're playing another human being that has tendencies and all kinds of things that make up their game. So, hey, all right, I might lose to you this first time. Got it. I got you next time.
That's beautiful though, because for people that are listening to us talk about this or don't really know the story, it's so easy to look at Serena's numbers and be like, oh, she just came on the tour winning. And there might be some truth to that, because it didn't take forever, but she just said her pro debut went terribly. She almost she did miss the flight. And the first time she had a big stage, big match against the world's best player, she flubbed it up. So like, if I was raising a child or just trying to, encourage somebody, if Serena Williams can flub up the first time she goes out there and lose opportunities and still end up being as iconic and such a champion as she is, I mean, what's my little loss? Especially if you put it in the context of like, people working 9 to 5. Oh, well, like it was a bad day. It happens.
That's typically like from the perspective of people who don't really watch, because there's a lot of people that don't watch the tour outside of the 4 majors. And
true.
If you, and that kind of goes into a conversation we'll have, a little bit into episode 2, but I think a lot of people just expect, when they look at tennis and they see Serena from a casual perspective or a super casual perspective, anytime I watch a Serena match, she's going to win. And it's like, whether she's in, Dubai, whether she's in Cincinnati, but that's not how it works. Because sometimes you'll go out there and, what's it? What's one of the ones on the grass tour?
Eastbourne?
You go to Eastbourne and lose in the first round. Like, that can happen. But people just expect when they see Serena, oh, she's won every match she's played. She's won every tournament she's played in. That's not how it works. That's not the game of tennis. So
she literally had to start from the ground up just like any other Joe Schmo and take those losses on the chin,
Exactly.
Makes her iconic. So 1998 happens. She's still in the shadow of Venus Williams. At that point, 1998, Venus has already made a U.S. Open final. She's competing with the best in the world: Lindsay Davenport, Monica Seles, Martina Hingis, Steffi Graf. She hasn't won a Grand Slam, but Serena is still considered behind Venus, and Venus is still the prodigy. Then comes 1999, which I feel like this part of the episode 1 hits a fever pitch because she starts talking about the very first WTA level tournament she wins in 1999, the beginning of the year, the Open Gaz de France in Paris. She beat 4 French players in the tournament, including Amélie Mauresmo in the final, who will go on to become a Grand Slam champion and world number 1 in her own right. And there are some moments while she's reflecting on that story about playing those French women that, honestly, I don't think the Serena I knew, I feel like she would always play off like her tennis brain and be like, oh, I forgot about that. I've been on tour for 30 years. No, she sat there and she knew exactly what chant those people were chanting in 1999 and sat there in a chair in 2024 and was like, oh, what was the name of the chant? How'd it go? Ale,
whoever. It's
Julie.
Yeah, like one thing I notice about athletes across sports, when they've been slighted, they never forget those moments. Like there's football players like Tom Brady. Tom Brady can tell you every quarterback that was drafted before him. I was just watching Devontae Adams, who's a wide receiver. He named every wide receiver that was drafted before him. Any player that is great, for the most part, will be able to tell you what players were drafted before them, what players won what tournaments before them, who they lost to, what the environment was when they had their greatest their greatest moment. Like, perfect example, yesterday, I promise you, Arthur Fies will never forget that moment at Hamburg. Never forget that moment at Hamburg.
Not us. Are you projecting we're going to be here in like 20 years having an Arthur Fies ESPN documentary?
I hope so. But all I'm saying is, like, players, like true competitors, don't forget those moments where they were slighted. And that's one thing I love about Serena, where it's just like like I said earlier, the most minuscule things that you would just be like, why are you even tripping on that? Really, like you said, could be a catalyst for them to say, all right, Ben, I'm about to go run off four straight majors.
She said as much. I mean, she can recall how it felt to be in that tiny stadium, which, throwback to 1999, that tournament, I think it's defunct now, but that tournament was huge for the players at the time. Shout out to the fact that Mauresmo was playing it and she had just gotten to the final of the Australian Open. So that tells you the caliber of the people she had to go through to win it. And she wasn't supposed to win that match. I don't know if she had been to a final before. They didn't talk about this in the series, but that was her very first WTA final. And to beat a player that had just gotten to a Grand Slam final, not have that much like extensive experience on tour behind you, and come through that environment where pretty much it feels like the entire arena wants you to lose and is rooting for their home player, and you end up lifting the trophy. That's, again, like you said, a premium athlete doesn't forget stuff like that, and she shouldn't, because literally in this picture she's grinning ear to ear, beads and all.
On your ass, especially if you playing in your home country. I'm on your ass.
That really, this is the common theme, but that right there is like the first drop in the bucket. There have been maybe some others, but that was the official first drop in the bucket that she got the dog in her. Because everybody else, I shouldn't say everybody else, but a lot of other people would have been like, "Oh, this is a lot," and it would have crumbled. But she said she just wanted to fight. She wanted to fight every single point, not miss a ball, and that began. I don't know if people know this, but that began, like, I want to say at least a 15 or so match win streak, because the next tournament she played was the Indian Wells Championship, and she beat Steffi Graf in the final. And she said in the episode, that's when everybody took notice and was like, "Oh, she won 2 in a row. There's 2 Williams sisters. We gotta look out for 2." And in hindsight, 2020, the story is what it is. But I think that's critical to like get your hands on your first trophy, not just any kind of old way, but in that kind of environment, beating a player of Maresmo's caliber at the time in her hometown, and then backing that up in the very next tournament, beating somebody else who is considered one of the best of all time in Steffi Graf, and really put the girls on notice. Yeah, really put the girls on notice. I'm with it, and I like this outfit.
Shouts out to them Puma years, man.
Shout out to Puma. They knew what was up. She didn't discuss how Puma came to be. Maybe there's some more of that as we go through the episode. I mean, she's had such a damn good career and such a long career. They can't put everything in there, but yeah,
what, 10 episodes?
It says 8, so we already 2 in, so we got 6 more. I'm interested to see how they'll play. Where was I? Where was I? Okay, so as we going through the evolution of Serena Williams, we in 1999, she's inching closer and closer to the top 10 people. She's put people on notice, right? So here comes the 1999 U.S. Open, and like they start and set it up with Venus and Serena being on opposite ends of the draw. So the only time they could really meet is in the final, which I feel like is a common theme in their career. That's how they want it. They wanted like that. They got it like that several times, but it was crazy to even know back before they were, even 1 or 2 in the world, they were thinking about that kind of stuff.
Ticket sales.
You said what?
Ticket sales. That sales. Siblings across from each other. I mean, look, they'll put Rafa and Roger on the opposite sides. So imagine it's two siblings. Oh yeah, put them on the opposite side. I hope they see each other in the final, because you know what? Them ticket prices that's normally $15,000 might go for $25,000. Like,
honestly, bring me back to 1999 U.S. Open ticket prices though. I'm sure it was great.
Oh, it might have been like $3,000, maybe $3,000.
$3,000, 3-0, just 1-0. That's what I wanted to pay for a ticket to get to the U.S. Open.
Good luck with that. At a final,
I feel like I'm okay. Well, in the early rounds at 1999, I feel like it should have been $30 for a for grounds pass ticket.
Before Ticketmaster starting hitting you with $80 in fees for $30 tickets. Yeah, for sure. But not these
man. So they kind of walk us through what Serena was feeling in that U.S. Open, and she said she had a premonition about like how she was going to win that tournament, but Richard had sat both her and Venus down. Maybe it was because they felt like this was the last Grand Slam before the turn of the millennium. And, back in 1999, they felt like the world was going to end in 2000. I don't know if that has something to play with it. But Richard was like, this is going to be the tournament that makes y'all's career, and that stuck with Serena. So she goes on to kind of walk us through her quarterfinal match against Monica Seles. She said that Monica Seles at the time was part of the reason that she picked up a tennis racket. She was fangirling. She was kind of, looking across the net like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm playing Monica Seles. Ends up spraining her ankle, which is kind of crazy because...
Oh, that was a nasty ankle roll. That was a nasty ankle roll.
You think that was a nasty one?
I mean, that's not the worst I've ever seen, but hey.
Okay, I feel like unfortunately has had her fair share of ankle issues, and just absolutely. That small clip of the one they showed, I was like, yeah, like right. I've seen worse. We literally saw worse.
You go out there and play on that rolled ankle and see how that feels.
Granted, this was 1999. This was 1999 kinesio tape, not 2024 kinesio tape. But all of that to say, she said she pushed past it, right, and beat one of her idols in the quarterfinals. She doesn't even like stop to really feel the ankle. And fast forward to semifinal. I think they played semifinals on still Saturdays back then. And she was first up, and she played Davenport, who was the reigning champ, the 1998 U.S. Open champion. That match goes 3 sets. She said she had played Davenport a couple different times and felt a lot more confident against that matchup. But Davenport played some of the best tennis that she had played against Serena up until that point, because she knew she wanted to keep that U.S. Open close to her vest. But Serena Williams prevailed in 3 sets. But the thing that really kind of ebbs and flows in this first episode to me is how much they were aware, Venus and Serena were, of how critical it would have been for them to meet in the final. And we saw from Venus's words how it kind of got in Venus's head, especially to see Serena win that first semifinal, Venus go out into the second one and kind of lose the plot against Martina Hingis, who she said, remember what Venus said, tennis was made for Hingis.
Pretty much.
Yeah, like she knew she had the court craft, she played the chess, and she kind of just got wired up into Hingis's game that day. And she said she said that it wasn't because she was thinking about Serena in the championship match, but I think that was a factor or level into it for sure.
Yeah, that'll do it. It's a classic. I'm looking past my opponent, even though this opponent is what, number one in the world at that time. Like, it happens. It happens,
yeah.
Especially when there's a possibility that you could be playing your sister in the next round. Like, I can't hold it against her because I probably would have been doing the same damn thing.
Yeah, especially when your sister's looking at you like down, like literally around your corner in your box. Like, it's a lot to process, and they're the first to tell you that tennis is a mental game, and they have to kind of go through those things to be as great as they are mentally. But when they cut to Serena looking at Venus losing to Martina Hingis, it was like you could see the dog in her level up again. She said she went to the practice courts and practiced just enough that same night, just enough to let Martina Hingis know, like, girl, this ain't gonna be
on your ass. I'm on your ass.
This ain't gonna be no walk in the park. Like, I'm ready for you. It was the way they edited her looking down at the court, like, you thought you had my sister, but wait until we get to this championship match on Saturday. You just wait.
It's literally like you go out there, your sister go out there and lose a fight to the neighborhood bully, and you just tell them, "Report, got you. I'm gonna get you when you least expect it, but I'm on your ass."
And she said, like, before that final against Hingis at the 1999 U.S. Open, that so many people were congratulating her for getting there, but also like damning her with faint praise. Like, oh, that's good. You got to the final. Like, you should celebrate that, and not even giving her a chance to win it. And she said she hated that. She hated it. And I can't blame her, because I'd be like,
that we're gonna
we got to play the match, love. Like, why you telling me congratulations? Like, yes, it is a good thing I got to the final, but she not me.
Cute story, but yeah, and that's how they looked at it. It was a cute story between y'all sisters, but
yeah,
Hingis is the one. Okay.
Harold said in the chat, Hingis forever a premium scammer.
I was never a Hingis fan, like, under any circumstance.
I mean, she did. I can't knock her, because she really was good at tennis.
I give her credit. It's just like all the players I've hated throughout sports that were great. I give you your credit. You're a great player, but I hate you. Like, I can't stand you. I'm cool. Like,
the funniest thing though, like, I think the clip that has gone the most viral so far is Serena getting ready to open up that match. They do the coin toss, and the chair ump referee asks Hingis, does she want to serve a return? And I believe Hingis said she wanted to serve. Any other athlete probably would have been like, okay, whatever, I'm just going to return. Serena opens up her mouth, and to her, she said she couldn't believe she said that.
No. If I recall, Hingis said she wanted to receive. That's what it was.
Really? I thought Serena said, I thought Hingis wanted to serve, and Serena was like, my return is really, really good, right? In her head. Yeah.
I think of return completely differently. I mean, when I think of receive, completely different. So yeah, she said return. All right, cool. She's return. Nigel. He said Hingis wanted to return.
Either way, Serena opened up her mouth and was like, "Are you sure about that?" The way the camera panned to her is crazy.
But again, that's another sign of like one of those minuscule moments of disrespect. Like, oh, okay, oh, word, that's how you feel. Got it. And she was, and that's why she said, oh, okay,
yeah, bet. And Serena went on to say, like, you could tell that moment threw her off, because Serena won the first 3 games of the match. She probably was like, and they're played already, so that probably was going through Hingis's mind, like, wait, I beat this girl, and she asking me, are you sure about that? Like, I'm the world's #1 player. I've won this US Open before, and this girl, this probably going through her head, this black girl think she gonna come here and shoot me up like this?
It's mental games, and again, in sports, when you do it correctly, it works. Like story, there's a story. Gilbert Arenas talks about LeBron James making him like Gilbert Arenas about to shoot some free throws to win a basketball game in the playoffs, and as Gilbert Arenas is going to the line to shoot the free throws, LeBron walks by him and taps him on his shoulder and was like, "Hey, you know you got to make these, right?" And then just walks back behind him. And Gilbert misses both free throws because it was in his head. So when Serena told that story, that's exactly what I thought of, because it's like when you let your opponent know, like, when you create that doubt in their mind, because for Hingis, she probably thought it was just a regular day in the neighborhood as far as that exchange goes at the net. But when Serena said, that's what you're doing today? Okay. That probably just created some doubt in her head where it's like, what is she talking about? And now,
I'm not mad at the doubt. I'm not mad at it.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all, because that's where it has to be. You have to continue to be mentally tough, because if not, what happened happens. So, hey, I like the way Serena played that game, and I love when athletes play those mental games with each other, because it can really throw you off if you're not mentally tough in that moment. It can really throw you off.
It makes it better television. I just wish I would have known that at the time, because I would have been glued to the television.
Because believe me, if they were mic'd up for that moment, oh my God, the commentators would have had a field day with that moment.
Imagine if Twitter existed.
No, like, just that's what we need in tennis, because you get mic'd up in football, you get mic'd up in basketball, you get mic'd up in baseball. If we had mic'd up during tennis matches, especially in like the changeover, I would have loved to see what Arthur Fee said to Alex Zverev yesterday. Like, and because I know what I would have said. I would have called him everything but a child of God, because don't talk to me during changeover. But also, like, I can't imagine the stuff Serena probably said to Maria Sharapova. Like, that'll
be something to keep note of as we keep watching the series, like how she describes that relationship with Sharapova now that they're not ace boon cool. Yeah, now that they're cool off the court and there's not that much tension,
Yeah, I can't imagine like the things we would hear. Like, even golfers, like we see mic'd up in team sports. If we saw like mic'd up in individual sports, oh my God, the things that players would say to each other. Like, imagine Daniil Medvedev like mic'd up during a match and he's pissed off.
Sometimes you don't need a mic. Sometimes he says it loud enough.
Nick Kyrgios, like, you hear what Nick Kyrgios be saying. Like, I'm telling you, if we get mic'd up in tennis, it's over. Like, I think that would take tennis to another level, from just like a social, like, tennis TV would have some golden moments if we had mic'd up in tennis.
They do all right now, but tennis could use some entertainment. But fast forward to where we were talking about Serena at the 1999 US Open. I think that whiskey got you getting us off track.
I'm telling you, it's not even a whiskey. I'm perfectly sober. I'm telling you, I'm just thinking of the moments we would have if we had tennis. Like, it would be insane.
Yeah, I feel that. But the episode 1 closes out with Serena Williams beating Martina Hingis for her very first Grand Slam. Even though she felt like she had a premonition that she was going to win it, she says that the whole dramatics of stuff of afterwards, after winning match point, is her acting, because she knew that she was going to win it, which I kind of sort of believe. But she was genuine in that moment on the court back in 1999. That's the first of 23 Grand Slams. But the episode then goes into like a really good cliffhanger to me, because she says after she wins that US Open, after she leaves the press conference, she didn't know it at the time, but there was a huge red X on her back for the rest of her career, because she was the first of the Williams sisters to come through and win a Grand Slam. It wasn't like she had to go through this easy draw. She beat the world's best players back to back to back. Sellis, Davenport, and Hingis, all U.S. Open champions, all former world number ones, and she beat them all to lift her first Grand Slam trophy before Venus, the prodigy, did it, and she was out of the shadows. So that's
the girls were jealous. And the girls were jealous.
The girls were jealous. The girls were jealous, which is a good segue into episode 2, because episode 2 focuses a lot on, like, in my opinion, how Serena was viewed and how Serena looked at people viewing her, especially after that 1999 US Open. She said it. She was just like, I guess because everybody saw me lifting that trophy, they felt like I should be lifting every Grand Slam after that. And she was doing well. It's not like she just fell off the face of the earth in the year 2000, but she didn't win a Grand Slam that year. And she felt like it was because all those girls were either hating on her or knew that when you hold a Grand Slam, especially as you're the reigning champion, everybody's going to play a little bit harder against you. And she felt that, and she didn't really deal with the pressure, so she says the best.
Yeah. I think so. I think that's where I kind of just came into it, like, because my mindset as I was watching that was, who on the tour now has to deal with that affliction of, besides Coco, like, I have to win every match or I will be heavily criticized. Because I think that's where it was. And I think at certain points, even later in her career with Serena, like, I've made this example before. With ESPN, they don't talk tennis unless Serena loses. Like,
then it becomes a big story, yeah.
And it becomes a huge story. Nobody talked tennis. Who said a word when Novak lost to Carlos Alcaraz?
The people say a word when he was winning?
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. And that lets you know who Serena is as the icon that she is, because at the end of the day, she is held to a higher standard and has been really throughout her entire career. And I think now with the girls that's on tour now, Iga lost. Who cared? But when Coco lost,
it becomes the ESPN highlight reel.
So I think Coco is the person with the most pressure. And I mean, before, Naomi went off and had her child, and is like, she's given grace because she's coming back from having a child. But you give it 1 or 2 more years on the tour, and Naomi hasn't made any deep runs in any majors, people are going to start having these conversations. But I think the person with the most pressure,
they're already having them now.
Thank you. So I think the person that is having the most, that has the closest to that kind of pressure right now on tour is Coco, because literally Coco has to win every match. And if not, you have everybody on Twitter, see,
they be in my spaces. They be in my space talking about that forehand.
Yeah, she overrated. She a scammer. She this, she that. And it's like, she's not going to win every match.
Yeah. Now, I think Serena went through that in 2000. Serena literally was like, if Twitter existed, we had more than newspapers back in 2000. It would have been a lot of people like, yeah, she won that 1999 US Open, but it was a fluke. She ain't gonna do it again. And I mean, this was like 6 months after she had won it.
Thank you. And that's where we are as a society. It's like, you're not gonna win every championship, but when you lose, you are overly criticized.
Yeah.
And I think Serena was one of the first, because I don't even think Michael Jordan got that, because he didn't have to deal with social media. But I think Serena was one of the first players, like, on a mass scale, that had to really deal with that criticism, where it was like very polarizing whenever she lost a match. Like, if
everybody had an opinion. Yeah.
If she won a match, oh, that's Serena doing what Serena does. But the moment she lost, she ain't focused. She ain't doing what she's supposed to do. She ain't practicing enough. Are the girls better than her now? Like, all these ridiculous conversations. And those conversations are reserved for a special type of athlete. The Serenas, the LeBrons, the Tom Brady's, like, the greatest of the great. And it sucks because it's like people are waiting for you to lose so they can get those takes off. And I think that's where Serena found it. And I think Serena had to deal with that it wasn't like she just
from 99.
No, Serena dealt with that from day one to day however many when she walked away from the sport, because people were killing her when she lost that last match she played. Like, yo, what are we doing?
I mean, I wasn't happy when she lost that last match of the U.S. Open. Fast forward 2024. Well, let's not give that any more airtime. All right, episode 2, Into the Light. We've already said it gets us off the heels of the 1999 U.S. Open. It shows more of how the tide turns in the family, and Venus Williams takes off and becomes the player to beat in the year 2000 and 2001. She wins 4 Grand Slam championships, 2 Wimbledon's back to back, 2 U.S. Opens back to back. And somewhere in there, we find ourselves at the 2001 U.S. Open, which is the first time Venus and Serena meet head to head for a Grand Slam final. And unfortunately, it's in the record book, Serena didn't come to play that day, and it really gave us a mindset. Her mind going into that match, how she says that like she was thinking about how much time her and Venus and her sister Venus had spent together. I didn't know this at the time, actually, but they were already living with each other. I knew they lived with each other at certain parts of their career, but it hadn't dawned on me that by 2001 they both had extensive contracts with Reebok and Puma and could afford their own house, and they had, like she said, a fun house. She was doing everything with Venus, and you get to the moment where you're back in a U.S. Open final. You've been a U.S. Open champion back in 1999. You're playing your sister, and you spend damn near every waking moment with this woman, and it kind of all catches up to her, and she just doesn't come to play that day, and Venus ends up losing winning that championship, but she learned from it. There's been the common theme in this conversation. When she has those moments where she's on the precipice or she just doesn't come to play, she learns from it and grows from it, because she barely loses after that. Like 2002 becomes the year of Serena,
But because I think when I was watching it yesterday, I think my biggest question was, could you imagine having to play your sibling on that stage with those stakes, with that legacy on the line? And I think so. I was having a conversation about it with a friend of mine, and I think from a guy's perspective, like, I grew up playing video games, playing Madden, playing 2K, playing fighting games against my brother, against my cousins, against my best friends. So that competitiveness is there, but the difference is, like, there's money on the line, there's legacy on the line. So it's like, how can I stand across from someone I care about so much and not at certain points feel the need to hold back? And I think that's something both of them had to deal with. And when Serena was like, I had to get to the point where I couldn't even look at my sister, like, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do that. Like, I love my brother to death. That's my dog. Like,
are you the younger brother or the older brother?
I'm the younger brother. Like, I don't.
Okay.
It's just me and my brother. I'm the baby. Like, I don't think I'd ever be able to be in a situation where I just can't even look at my brother in the heat of competition. And this is a brother who has beat the brakes off of me in all kinds of sports as a kid. But like I said, the stakes are different when you're playing professionally. Both of y'all are playing professionally. Money's on the line, legacy's on the line, stakes are on the line. It's completely different. So I don't even I have so much respect for them to be able to go out there and do that, not just once. We're doing this several times.
And 3 times in the same year. Like,
a span of 3 times in the same year. Like, nah, man.
2002 must have been, part of me feels like I would, because I don't know why I feel this way. Maybe I'm being braggadocious, but I feel like if I had, I'm the older brother in my scenario, but I have a younger sister. I feel like if I had a younger brother, I would have loved him. Like that would have been fine, but I would have found a way to separate the the competitor and dog in me from like older brother. And in 2002, I think Venus struggled with that and the fact that Serena got better, like just flat out got better because of in part because of that 2001 US Open final. Serena was like, wait, I want to be the winner here at all costs, but I'm playing somebody that I'm stuck at the hip with, who loves me dearly, has been protecting me since I can remember. But ultimately, I got to find a way to put that on the back burner on match day. And she said before the French Open final in 2002, I'm not gonna look at her. I'm not gonna look at her. I'm gonna take point. Yeah, I'm gonna take literally point by point. I'm not even gonna think about winning the match before I think about winning this point. And she worked herself to match point at the French Open in 2002. And before you know it, like she has match point. She's holding the trophy. And she said, now people are like, in tennis terms, I'm pretty darn good. I'm no longer a one slam wonder. Like, yeah, I did what I was supposed to do. And you know, that sets her up for Serena Slam. She goes on to win Wimbledon in 2002. And I like how she stopped while she was kind of, you know, going through the memories of it all, and said that the 2002 Wimbledon felt inevitable. There was a time where she felt like winning was inevitable. And if you could, like, if you go back and watch highlights of that 2002 Wimbledon, it felt like that from the television. The aura she had was like, y'all not touching me. I'm if I play my best, which I am right now, it's lights out for y'all. And like that aura from French Open to fast forward to 2003 Australian Open, like, yeah, there were bumps in the road, but for her not to lose a Grand Slam match for a year basically is insane. Like, I mean, it's and crazy even more so that she did it again like 10 years later. That's insane.
So question, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about the narrative? Because I know in sports, when the winner becomes like a foregone conclusion. So you got the Patriots, the 2000 and 2010. You got the Warriors throughout the 2010s.
Boo. Sorry.
You got Serena's run, right? People always people always talk about how boring it is when it feels like it's a foregone conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
Okay, admittedly, I wasn't tuned into tennis like I am now, like back in 2002. I feel like
once you were tuned into tennis, like
yeah, she had moments. She had moments where I felt like a foregone conclusion. Yes, but if I can go back 2002, I would have loved it. Honestly, I would have. It's. I guess it's. I'm not being impartial because Serena is, you know, one of the athletes of my life. But to have an athlete that is as endearing and controversial and as like innovative as her play was at the time, to go on a stretch like that, I think I would have been like stuck to the television or like stuck to the newspaper at the time trying to see what the latest score was, because she was rapidly becoming so far ahead of her peers. And not just because she was doing something similar to them, maybe that would have been boring, but she took it up a notch and like really had the aura of a champion when it felt like tennis was maybe becoming a little ho-hum. And on top of that, her biggest rival was her sister.
Yeah, and
you know, like that, I would have enjoyed that.
The reason I asked is because one thing I've learned as sports fans is we ask for parity. We ask for a different winner every time until we start getting different winners every time. And there's nobody dominating the sport. And then when nobody's dominating the sport, it's like, oh, this is boring. Because a lot of people complain about the men's side of the tour. A lot of people complain about the women's side of the tour because there's nobody really dominating in the manner in which Serena and Venus did, and, you know, Roger and Rafa did at one point. I mean, I think we're seeing the. I'm not gonna jinx that. You know what? I'm gonna skip that. Let's go back to talking Serena.
you were about to drop Carlos Alcaraz in there again, weren't you?
No. I was gonna say we're witnessing the demise of a certain person, but I'm gonna keep that to myself. So
we can have a whole episode about that if you would like. We'll talk about that off camera.
We'll do that one day. Just be prepared to get blocked by a lot of people on Twitter.
It's fine. They hate me mostly on Twitter. The ones that like me and are listening to this, I appreciate y'all. But the ones that don't, I can't please everybody. Okay, it's just my opinions are my opinions. Okay. Let's see. Episode 2. We're in the middle. Okay, let's go to one of my. But before I get to the point in the episode 2 that kind of I didn't cry, but I really was emotional. The cat suit.
We gotta talk about that. We gotta talk about that.
She said, "Wait, what pink hat?
That pink hat she had on where she was looking like Whitney Houston in that episode." You know what pink hat I'm talking about?
You talking about when Venus came? I was like, "Are you watching too much television? You got to come to school and find something to do with your life besides wasting it on television."
When they show her do that interview and she had that interview with that pink hat on, I don't know what it was. Let me see if I can find it. That hat was insane, but she looked just like Whitney Houston with that hat on.
No, I know what hat you're talking about. I just didn't get I didn't get Whitney Houston.
She looked like Whitney Houston in that hat.
I wonder what time frame that was from though, because it couldn't have been the time frame you're actually talking about, because her hair didn't match. She was still wearing the she had like a black bob, but in that time the blonde braids. I don't know. Either way, this little number right here is iconic. Like, going back to what you said about your barber, I'm sure a lot of barbers had this picture or similar pictures of
Serena. Man. Absolutely. That iconic picture of her hitting that serve.
And
yeah, the yeeks of something. Like, yeah, that is very much an iconic, because Dulles was like, "Oh wait, I didn't know she had that."
And this what they're doing in tennis. This how they built in tennis. That is crazy.
Quintessential barbershop talk.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of barbers had that pinned up somewhere in their shop just for a quick glance.
Up to my face.
But she said like she wasn't built like everybody else. She wasn't playing like everybody else. So her outfits needed to reflect the fact that she was different, and nobody had really worn something like that or had the body to fill it through. So shout out to Serena Williams for the legendary cat suit. I don't have a comment. You know, what's her name tried? Wozniacki wore a bodysuit last year at the US Open. Take that how you will.
Like somebody janitor in that suit. Let me stop. Anyway,
janitor is insane. Janitor is absolutely insane, and we have to move on because that is.
She look like she come clean up after hours. I was like, girl, if you don't go so with that anyway. Yeah. Oh man, let me relax.
Oh Lordy B. Okay, let's get back on track to the 2003 Australian Open. Woo! Let me find a picture. So
wait.
Nigel's not making it better. What?
How did you feel about the jealousy amongst the girls? Because that was my biggest thing. When Mauresmo and who was that? And Henin, especially Henin, girl, go sit down somewhere. We gotta beat them. Like, neither one of them can win. Word. That's so corny to me.
I think they said either it was an ESPN like segment, but Mauresmo and Henin went on to say something to the effect of like, we don't know how many times players have come up to us in the locker room and said it would be more interesting if Serena and Venus weren't dominating everything, or if Venus and Serena and Venus lost. Something to that effect. And it's like, would they have said something like that if Serena and Venus didn't look like Serena and Venus? You think?
Or if it was them.
Yeah, fair enough.
If it was either one of them dominating, nobody will say a word. Or if it was both of them at the same time, who cares? Like, but again, I will say this: if it was just those two dominating, nobody would care. That's the thing. Nobody would care on a not just on a United States scale, but on a global scale. Nobody would care.
Yeah. Nigel said it's like they're dominating because y'all are getting your ass beat. Yeah. Like, Justine, you were not good enough at the time, my love. You were not good enough.
Here comes Justin and Amelie looking like they walking down the Potts aisle in Home Goods. Like, no one cares. But Serena and Venus bring charisma and energy to a sport that at that time was 9 times out of 10 dying.
Yeah. Late, or should I say early 2000s, it was about Sampras and Agassi, and like there was a crowd for that, but it wasn't impacting the globe and touching different markets the way Serena and Venus had on tennis, and still do. Like we said at the top of the show, Coco, Naomi, Sloane, a bunch of other girls, like they just wouldn't have had the inspiration and careers that they ultimately have had if Venus and Serena didn't start all of this in 30 years ago. So it's insane. But yeah,
they don't bring interest to the sport. So even if they went on a 100 match win streak, nobody would give a damn. That's not headlining Sports Center.
Actually, I don't even think I can maybe think of one time I remember Justine Enna getting a spot on ESPN, and you know what? It was because she beat Serena. It was the 2007 French Open, and Serena had just won the 2007 Australian Open. They had played in Miami. Serena won. So it was like, they kind of built it up as a battle of the Titans, and, shade to Serena, but Justine Enna wiped the floor with her that day. Serena wasn't good. But Serena wasn't in her clay bag. What?
You know what we call that? The Serena stimulus package. That's exactly what it is. Like, nah, man, what are we doing? Because if she would have beat whoever else before that time, nobody would have cared.
She beat who she beat in the semi. She beat Yankovic in the semifinals and Ivanovic in the finals. And I don't remember ESPN doing like a package on that, but I do remember ESPN showing me vivid highlights of Innen beating up on Serena that day.
That would have gotten played 3 o'clock in the morning on ESPN. Oh man, Justin Anna beat Anna Ivanovic. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. But I also think like that those moments where she literally felt like her peers were not happy for her. Granted, it's an individual sport. It's tough to be happy for somebody that's beating you and performing better than you. But at the same time, every time a mic is in your face or a reporter has a pen and paper, it's not your duty to say like, oh, Serena and Venus are this and that and they're boring or whatever. Y'all just were getting beat at the time.
But it also wasn't many, there weren't too many other black girls on the tour. I mean, you had a few, but like
shout out to Shanda Rubin.
Not as many now because I feel like Coco, Tay, Sloane, Naomi.
Oh, I knew exactly where you were about to go, but you skipped her and went to
for good reason. But I feel like they can kind of like incubate. I feel like they can kind of incubate amongst each other and relate to each other, have conversations and stuff like that. But Serena and Venus had each other. I think that's why they went on ahead and had that house together. I think that's why they spent so much time together, because it's just us.
I honestly think it was really, really cool to see like they played that 2003 Australian Open, because I think Venus had got good and darn tired of losing to Serena. It was the beginning of a new year, and Venus was like, yeah, you're good, but like, let's remember who started this thing. And the way that they edited that moment to be like, I don't want to say the straw that broke the camel's back, but it felt like such a defining moment because Venus played well in that match, and Serena will be the first to admit it. That first set, that's one of the best matches they've ever played, and Venus should have won that first set, but Serena squeaked it out. And I think she said somewhere in it that she could tell that there was a moment that Venus missed the shot, and Serena was like, "Oh, like she's letting me back into this." That music that they played throughout all of that 2003 Australian Open clip, that was the one time I was like, yeah, this probably would have been hard for me, especially knowing what was on the line. Like Serena was about to capture her 4th straight Grand Slam, cement herself as world number 1, all at the cost, every single step of the way, of her sister's success. Like whoever picked that score, I don't even know what song that was. I really don't know what song that was. Whoever made that moment, shout out to you.
It very much sounded like they kind of bit off the score from Oppenheimer. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had Hans Zimmer or somebody in there working.
You just mentioned a whole bunch of stuff I have no idea about. I don't know what an Oppenheimer is.
I'm a movie buff, so yeah.
I know. I've heard Oppenheimer, but I couldn't. Oppenheimer could be walking straight across from me on the street, and I wouldn't know a thing. Sorry to that man. Or people, if it's more than one person. Sorry. Yikes. But yeah, that 2003 Australian Open final is a good one to rewatch. I'm pretty sure the full match is uploaded on YouTube in a couple different ways, and it's probably on Australian Open YouTube's official site, so you can get the best quality. But go back and rewatch that so you can see, like, you can see and feel how good the quality of the match was, but just how thick the tension was. Because I feel like Venus really wanted to put her foot down, and Serena was just still the better player. And after game 7 match was called, they cut to Venus and saying, I think I wrote this down. Venus said she would normally never hug anybody, but Serena's happiness was tied into Venus's happiness. So even though, Venus tried her hardest at all of those Grand Slam finals, in particular that 2003 one, it stung. And ultimately, like you said, her happiness is tied up into Serena. So it's like, you know what? I lost, but my little sister won. And it's the second best thing that could have happened here.
I'd rather it be her than any of these other fools on the tour, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Later on, she'll be like, well, at least the trophy says Williams.
As long as it wasn't Amelie Mauresmo. Like, yeah, appreciate it.
Now, you know what's crazy though? Venus played her ass off to get to that final. I don't think she dropped a set. Whereas Serena was struggling. Serena, I don't know if y'all remember this. Real tennis players know, or tennis fans know, that 2003 Australian Open semifinal that Serena had to go through to get to the final and face Venus, she was down multiple match points against Kim Clijsters. She should have been out. But
man,
the dog is in her. The dog is in her.
Yeah, shouts out Kim Clijsters.
That's one of your faves?
No.
Oh, I'm about to say, you sound like Sloane Stevens.
No.
Sloane Stevens always mentions Kim Clijsters as one of her favorites, which is fair, but
back then, if it wasn't Venus or Serena, I wasn't really a fan. So on the WTA side, if it wasn't Venus or Serena, I didn't really care. So,
but your opinion really is not like in the minority. A lot of people feel that way. Even people fast forward to where we stand in 2024. A lot of conversations that I have with people are like, yeah, I used to watch. Like they'll go back to like 2019 or before the pandemic, 2020 or something like that. But when Venus and Serena started to like ebb and flow, their attention to the sport of tennis ebbed and flowed right on out of here. And that's part of my demographic that I'm trying to come back to tennis and really tune in, but also tap into the people that don't know about it. But I would have loved to have a platform that I have now right after that final in 2003, because it kind of the rivalry, I wouldn't say it peaked there, but that's definitely one of the peaks of the Williams sisters rivalry, is that 2003 Australian Open final. And like it cemented Serena as the best in the world, Venus as second best. And like this is something that the tennis world is literally never going to forget, because how could they? This has never happened before,
But they they didn't really market the sport outside of those two for a long time. Like even on the men's side, until that. Like I tell people all the time, I love Venus and Serena to death. Those are my two favorite players ever. But I didn't fall in love with I didn't fall in love with the sport as far as watching it. Outside of them on the men's side, I didn't fall in love with tennis until that 08 final between Roger and Rafa at Wimbledon.
Fair enough. I can see why. That was,
strokes of genius. People still say that's the greatest tennis match of all time. Like, that's when I truly fell in love with being able to sit and watch the sport outside as a whole, not just Venus and Serena, but as a whole. But again, that's because you have a rivalry. When there were no rivalries on the men's side, it was just like, okay, like I'm just here for entertainment, I guess.
Yeah, let me just watch Mark Philippoussis or whoever.
Thank you. Oh, Leighton Hewitt. Like, no.
Sorry, y'all. You're a Leighton Hewitt fan. I'm so sorry. Those are good players, but like, I can't walk into a bar. I can probably count on one hand how many people would stand up if I walked into a sports bar and said Leighton Hewitt or Philippoussis' name. If I walk into a sports bar and say Venus and Serena, everybody knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, turn it. Like, yeah, that's what it is. But now we don't have those iconic players at this point.
In 2024, we're witnessing the transition out of the big three era. Obviously, Venus and Serena. Serena's officially retired. Venus is like
close
retired. So yeah, we're transitioning.
Our Andy Murray tour.
Please, we're witnessing something. We're witnessing the next evolution, to borrow a word for Serena's to borrow a word from Serena's vocabulary. We're witnessing the evolution into something different. But I tell you, like, man, to be a fly on the wall, even though I don't like how the Australian Open looked back in 2003, all that green, it just didn't look aesthetically. It compared to how it looks aesthetically now, it looked terrible 20 years ago. But I still would have wanted to be a fly on the wall or a seat at the stadium in Melbourne that day, because that was a good ass match in 2003. What else happens in episode 2? That's where we end, I think, is that 2003 Australian Open. And
they didn't talk about the incident in Indian Wells. I'm sitting there waiting on.
I was gonna not you spoil my little notes that I got on the corner. I was gonna ask you, like, because that's kind of where they left off. Like, it episode 2 ends at the 2003 Australian Open. Venus is openly talking about her happiness with being tied up in Serena, and Serena showing us how difficult it was to kind of, realize that Venus was wired that way and still push past it to be the great champion that she is. I don't know. I actually am not 100% sure. I guess chronologically they're going to go to 2004 season, 2005 season. But I wanted to ask you what was surprising in this 1990s to 2003 era, something that they left out. But you already said it. What was the thing they left out?
The Indian Wells incident. And I mean, that's a huge incident. And it might be, because you got to remember, they went years without even acknowledging it, like talking about it. So it might just be a situation where they were just like, you know what? We don't even want to talk about it. Now, who knows? Episode 5, 6, 7 down the road, they might address it. Maybe when they came back. That might be the time, because a lot of times with these documentaries, they may go some years in and then double back to have a contextual conversation about, one incident and the full context of the situation. So it could be a situation where 6, 7, they talk about, we came back to Indian Wells, and then they double back to give context of the whole situation.
Give us one of those movie thoughts, processing backwards or something like that.
Exactly. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't talk about it at all.
Really?
Because I feel like it feels like over the years, Venus and Serena like don't even want to give that whole situation any kind of energy. So
I feel that. I feel that. I do feel that. But ultimately, they made a decision to go back to that venue. So I feel like it opens up the conversation, at least to me, to like, okay, where's something you can talk about now? Because I probably would have steered away from it if they were still in the boycotting phase. But they went back there. They had their own success. I mean, Serena got back to the final. Venus got to a semifinal. Should have won it.
Do you think
that's okay?
Do you think they'll address their issues at the U.S. Open?
In this documentary, I think Serena Williams will absolutely address some of the issues that happened in that 2000, or I was going to say 2004 U.S. Open, but that is where it started. I think she's going to talk about her issues at the U.S. Open because it is a place where she literally came to the forefront, but it's also synonymous with some of the most used clipped moments that people try to paint her in a negative light. So there's probably a bunch of emotions surrounding both the US Open and Indian Wells because a lot happened there for her as an athlete. And I just can't imagine her telling the story without at least doing one of those things, at least explaining how she felt during some of those US Open moments, or like giving us some of the things that we haven't heard while she went through that incident at Indian Wells 2001. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google Serena Venus Williams 2001 Indian Wells, and it was not nice scenes. But and however, Serena won that tournament, so that's another indicator. The dog is there. The dog is there.
That's what it is. So
that's what it is. That's what it is. I think they have left us in a good position because I feel, to be honest with you, and some people in the chat here on YouTube or Twitter may still agree with me. Because I know so much about Serena's story and Venus's story, I can't say that I was sitting on pins and needles for this series to drop. But episode 1 and episode 2 have kind of reinvigorated me into seeing the small things from their journeys that they maybe haven't talked about, because I didn't know that incident happened with her and Hingis. I didn't know that Venus knew way back in 2003 that like she had an issue, or 2002 with an issue facing Serena, so that's kind of like, that's good insight, and I'm buckled up for the rest of the series. I just am interested to see where they go now, because in Serena's arc of her career, things get a little tricky after 2003 Australian Open. They really do.
But that's the beauty of these documentaries. You get to see things that you didn't know happened behind the scenes and shit on the court. Like you get to see things that you never knew happened. You get new insights on situations. You get context from the athlete's perspective on situations that the media thought they had it a certain way, or narratives that they painted a certain way. You get the full context of the situation from the athlete's perspective to say, hey, they painted it this way, but this is what happened to make it come off this way. So that's why, like, even in this age of athletes having their own podcast, so they can come out and say, so they can get out in front of the stories on their own. Now, sometimes they do it to cover their asses, but a lot of times it's, hey, yeah, this happened, but this is what led up to this. And that's why I think it's beautiful for her to come out and say, all right, this is my story. Like, this is like the whole Hingis situation. People just thought she went out there and did what she did, and it came out that way. But something like that is that moment before the match. Something like that can carry throughout a match, and that's the kind of legendary moments we need to know about, because that's the kind of stories that build people's legend. Because all the stories they tell about Michael Jordan and the stuff that he would say to players on the court and all of that stuff like that, that's the stuff we use to build legend. And I mean, I would like that Hingis story is something we need to know.
Going from one story to another, I have to tell you, you know what story just popped into my head?
What?
I'm about to show it. Because the docuseries leaves us in 2003, right? At Australia in 2003. I want to know what Serena felt about this moment. Like, because I don't know if she's actually gone and truthfully explained how, one, she felt like that crowd at Roland Garros was against her in that 2003 semifinal, and two, just how pissed off she was at Justine Inna with the whole she had her hand up thing. But I mean, people can argue that match happened in the prime. I mean, not it's tough to argue against. It's tough to argue against this, actually. But that match happened in the prime of Serena Williams' career. She would have had a second French Open final. I mean, a second French Open trophy likely if she beats Inna in that semifinal. I'm interested to see if they're going to like stop there and talk about Justine Inna and Serena's rivalry, or just that match in particular and how it kind of shaped the rest of her career and her relationship with the French Open, because she didn't get back to a semifinal there until years later. So I'm interested to see how, if they stop there and talk about that rivalry or that match in particular.
That's a very odd crowd, man. That's a very odd crowd. Like,
and it's crazy because Serena can speak French, so I'm sure. Yeah, now that I've talked it up enough, like I feel like that'll be something interesting to get into, like how Serena felt so comfortable in Paris enough to learn the language, but to oftentimes get on the court and feel like nobody in that crowd wanted you to win, even though I won here before.
I think the reason she learned French was many more reasons outside of the French Open.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. All the other stuff. Oh, we didn't talk about her going to school either, but
we didn't talk about going to fashion school, and we didn't talk about the fact that she said, which is so relatable, she said that 2002 tear she went on was because boyfriend at the time ghosted her, and she was like, you know what, I am going to make sure that you see me on every corner of the planet, because I'm Serena Williams. At that point, she was already a Grand Slam champion. She was known well enough around the world, and you ghosted me? No. That's not how this is going to work, or that's not how this is going to play out. And honestly, she won.
But again, it's the little things that can, send you right up. Because like dubbing Serena Williams is insane.
But like, imagine ghosting this in 2002 or whatever. Yeah, imagine ghosting it. I think she said this happened. She was in DC at the after the US Open 2001. Imagine ghosting this in 2001.
I want to know who he is. That's what I want to know.
She said she basically like skirted past him and was like, oh, he's irrelevant. But like, I wonder what he's doing, if he's still with us in the world. I wonder what he's doing and how he felt about ghosting Serena Williams back in 2001.
Dubbing Serena Williams, like that's something I can't go to a bar and tell my homeboys about. Like, nah, that's an L I have to eat and take to my grave. I'll never tell that story. Like, I had
stopped talking to Serena Williams.
I had Serena on my arm and I dubbed that. Like, nah, I'm cool. I'm taking that to the grave.
Yeah, I mean, it does. He probably does, because we have no idea who that is, because he probably never publicly said it. He knows, though. He knows who he is. He has to know who he is.
Absolutely.
Man, that's a tough life to live, ain't it? To just walk around the world knowing that you had Serena Williams before she kind of came the Serena Williams, and you just left her alone. That's crazy.
That's an episode of that's like an old like Oprah interview right there.
That's like an unsung episode. Shout out to TV One.
Unsung, I dubbed Serena Williams.
I know, right? Do they still make unsung episodes?
Wait, Will, it was LeVar Arrington? Oh, well, you know what?
Who's that?
Idiot, so
who's that?
Football player. He's an idiot.
I know you were going to say a football player. Who did he play for?
The Washington, what is it? The Washington Commanders. I don't want to say their old name. The Washington racial slurs, as some people like to call them.
The what? Do you mean the Redskins? Sorry, Redskins. Oh my God.
The Washington racial slurs. Yeah, LeVar Arrington's an idiot.
What was his name? LeVar Arrington. Again, somebody that could probably walk up to me and
you'll never
don't know.
And really? Actually, Serena, you know what? Serena, thank God he dubbed you, because you don't deserve that kind of idiot in your life.
Hold on. LeVar Arrington. Come on, Twitter, work for me. I need a throwback picture. This is the best I'm gonna get. Is it him? Hold on. I'm about to show it. This him?
Myles, you need an actual picture of LeVar Arrington.
That's not okay.
Google. Go to Google.
He wasn't 96.
Go to Google and Google LeVar Arrington.
Zetas, hold on.
Hey, Sydney.
LeVar Arrington. Wait, pause.
What?
I don't know why I expected an older man. Let me see. Share tab instead. Let me do a quick zoom so I can know I'm not crazy. Boom, there we go. This that man? This him?
Yes, that's LeVar Arrington. Thank God it's Serena. Oof. You dodged a bullet, actually. Jesus Christ, you dodged a bullet.
Yeah, Olympia probably wouldn't have been as cute.
Not at all. Shouts out my niece. Not at all. Yeah. Shouts out to Alexis. Nah.
Hey, Sydney. Shout out to you for listening. That's crazy.
Also, when you hear him talk, he's just an idiot. Like,
does he have any like credible jobs now? Like, is he with ESPN? I'm so weak. Will said, "Brace yourself."
Brace yourself is crazy. No, he has like a sports radio show where he just spews a bunch of nonsense. Bad sports takes, bad political takes. He's just a meathead. Like
a meathead.
Yeah. The version of, like, you know how the dumb jock, like the quintessential dumb jock, he's just African American. Just the African American dumb jock. That's who he is.
Well,
who he's always been. So
he dodged. Well, Serena dodged the bullet, and he lost Serena. So that's his cross to bear for the rest of his existence. For the rest of our existence, I will be waited with bated breath on Wednesday, the 24th. Wednesday, July 24th is when I think the next episode of In the Arena, Serena Williams, airs on ESPN Plus. If you don't have an ESPN Plus subscription, find one, get a password from one of your buddies, or just, drop that $9.99 or whatever for like a month or two and delete it. But get it again for the US Open, because it'll be important to watch Coco defend her title back then. Let's see. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed to Tuned Into Tennis, that's me. That's my platform. Make sure you do so. If you enjoyed this conversation, if you're watching on Twitter, make sure you follow, share the profile. If you're watching or listening back on a podcast, do your thing, share the podcast, do all that fun stuff. I appreciate it. And tune in for the remaining episodes of In the Arena, Serena Williams. My guy Miquel, thank you for joining me and having this conversation. I think we said some good things, some things in between, and probably some things that I had to cover my face for.
Shout out to Caroline Wozniacki and her Dickie suit. Cleaning all the kindergarten classrooms in your local elementary schools. Shouts out Caroline. She need to retire too. But anyway, let me stop being mean. All love. There you go.
Yeah, Serena and Wozniacki are like, something like besties. So yeah, go Wozniacki. All right, y'all. I will talk to y'all later. Like I said, do what you want to do with this episode. If you've lasted this long, share it with your friends so they can laugh, and make sure to tell them about the ESPN docuseries. I think it's really, really well put together, and we'll be doing more of these recaps as the episodes continue to drop. So with that, thank you again, Miquel, for doing this with me. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching along and listening and engaging. I appreciate it. And until next time, y'all take care, okay? Bye, everybody. Hey, Miquel, you don't leave, because I got to make sure this stays, okay? Don't leave yet. Don't leave this damn studio.